Hello, my dear students of Class 7. This is your tutor, Atsinyo Sekose, and this tutoring is coming from the Directorate of School Education, Nagaland. Today, we have a new topic to discuss. You will find it on page 83, and our topic is titled Trees. As you can see, it is a poem, but today it is a different poem that we are going to discuss. In our previous poetry section, we have discussed that poems are in fact written in stanza. But as you can see today, it is simply written in lines. So that is again another different kind of poem that we are going to deal with. Now, I'm sure every one of you is familiar with the topic that is trees. We have seen it around us, we make use of it a lot, and it is nothing new, but just to remind ourselves, we have also learned about a few things about trees from our previous classes, and I'm sure these are in your mind, such as cherry trees, remember, and also pine trees and so on. So when we think about these trees, cherry trees, it gives, it beautifies our scenarios when it blooms. So that is, again, we can say that is one purpose, but we are going to find out a whole lot more than that in our poem that is trees. Now, before we look into the poem here, what are some of the things that we get from trees? If we think about it, like the cherry blossom, we can say that it beautifies our scenario, but besides that, we get air from it, and I'm sure you have also learned that in your science class, and we also get timber. When we say timber, it means wood or firewood. So that's what we get. We also get fruits from it. We also, in fact, if we think about it, this guava fruit is a very famous fruit here in our region. And so such kind of things that we get. We can also think about elder trees. That is one of our favorite again. Why? Because it is very light and we can use it for so many purposes, such as even making guitar and so on. So see, those are some trees that surround us. And if we think about it, I'm sure you have a whole lot more in your mind. You can keep it noted, and we are going to find out what does it do or how do it help us, and many more things that we are going to discover today. Now, before we read the poem here, I want you to take a look at some of the new words, or maybe for some of you it may not be necessarily be new words, but maybe some phrases as well. So here, the first one we have here is tree houses. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with it, and maybe some of you have actually built one. So here, tree houses, in fact, is a tiny house built in the tree branches. So that's the first one. Second, swing. Again, this is also something that is our favorite. That is a seat hanging by two ropes from tree branches. So we can also make a swing out of trees. Then number 3, hide and seek. Hide and seek here is actually a game, and I'm sure you love to play. How do we play this game? Hide and seek is something when a game where one player shuts his or her eyes and count to a certain number, and the rest will go into hiding, and then after that, after the counting is over, we go and seek out the rest of the players. So I'm sure this is one favorite of yours. And then the next word we have here is timber. If you have noticed in our poem, you will find that it is written in capital letters, or we can say in uppercase here, and we have a very strange letter addition here, that is the repetition of the letter R. Maybe the poet has written in this way because she wants to emphasize on the stress, or to stress the point that it is being used for, trees are being used for timber. We would get into more details here. So the next one we have here is a phrase that is to rake this fall, which means fall. The word fall is actually referring to season in that is American English, all right? But in British we know it as autumn. So that is the difference here. It means the same thing. We are talking about season here. Then we have the next word, phrase, that is to rake. What does to rake means? Which means to sweep or to put away. So that is to rake, or to rake this fall. We are going to find out more detail here. So those are some new words that we have. I want you to keep it noted. And we would be reading the poem here, and I request you to look down into your text and follow me. So our poem, that is Trees, written by Shirley Barr, and look into your text and try to follow me. So trees. Trees are for birds. Trees are for children. Trees are to make tree houses in. Trees are to swing swings on. Trees are for the wind to blow through. Trees are to hide behind in hide and seek. Trees are to have tea parties under. Trees are for kites to get caught in. Trees are to make cool shade in summer. Trees are to make no shade in winter. Trees are for apples to grow on and pears. Trees are to chop down and call timber. Remember, we have discussed about the R there. Trees make mothers say, "What a lovely picture to paint." Trees make fathers say, "What a lot of leaves to rake this fall." So that is written by Shirley Barr, and that's our poem there. Now we are going to discuss this in detail. So as we have learned, we learned that trees gives us so many things, it provides us so many things, but in this poem here, we are going to find out even some of the least things that we took it for granted. So that's what we will be finding out here. Trees are for birds. We all know that trees also provide shelter, not only for birds, but for animals. It is a home for them, in fact. Then trees are for children. This is very interesting. I need you to keep the next few lines noted. Why did the poet say that trees are for children? These are the reasons. Trees are to make tree houses in. We make tree houses in it, and I'm sure you love to play in those kind of tree houses. Trees are to swing swings on. Just as we have learned, we build a swing around the tree branches and we swing and we play. So that's why trees are for children. Trees are for the wind to blow through. This is also very interesting because we never think about it in this way. Trees are for the wind to blow through. When we think about it in that way, how do we know that the air surrounds us? We know it when the trees and plants move, right? And it can also tell us about the direction, where the wind is blowing, whether it is going this side or the other way around. So that's how we can figure out the direction of the wind as well when the wind blows through the trees. And in the next line, trees are to hide behind in hide and seek. When you are playing hide and seek, we usually, if we are playing out in the open, we usually hide behind a tree trunk, right? So it is also for children because children also love to play hide and seek and especially hide behind trees. Trees are to have tea parties under. And when we go out for tea parties, what kind of a spot do we look for? We look for a clear spot where beneath the tree we can sit and have parties, and especially tea parties, So trees are to have tea parties under. Trees are for kites to get caught in. Again, this is very interesting because we never think about it in this way. When you are flying your kites, what usually happens is it gets caught among the tree branches, and so it is also for kites to get caught in. Trees are to make cool shade in summer. We all know that in summer, trees provide us shade so that we can sit and rest in that manner. So trees are to make cool shade in summer. Trees are to make no shade in winter. Now, let's take a look at these two lines here. It is very different, very contrasting, opposite, because in summer it is providing us shade, but in winter, it does not provide us any shade. Why? Because in winter season, trees, what do? They shed their leaves. So it is leafless. So that's why it does not provide any shade. Maybe the poet is trying to be humorous here or trying to bring out the difference in summer and winter. Trees are for apples to grow on and pears. And not just apples and pears. If we think about it, remember, we also get mangoes and guavas and so on. So trees are for apples to grow on and pears. In other words, trees also provide us not only those things such as swing and tree houses and so on, but also it gives us fruits to eat. Then trees are to chop down and call timber. So remember that word there. Maybe the poet or Shirley Bauer here is trying to point out or trying to make us see that we are chopping down trees for what? For firewood. And if we think about it, I think that is a very harmful thing, and I think this is something that we should also reconsider. So I'm sure you have some brilliant ideas how we can stop doing that. So you can also think about some few things along that line. Trees make mothers say, "What a lovely picture to paint." So when you draw pictures or when you draw paint, when you do painting and you draw a tree, maybe your mother would comment and say, "That's a very lovely picture," you know. In fact, you can also try to draw pictures of trees and see what your mother would say. Trees make fathers say, "What a lot of leaves to rake this fall." For some people, we might also complain, saying, like the father here, "What a lot of leaves to rake this fall." Remember, in autumn season, in winter and autumn season, trees shed their leaves. So what happened is, it will fall down and dirty your compounds, and maybe you have often heard your parents or family members saying, "Oh, I have to sweep this again," you know. So to rake, lots of leaves to rake this fall. So that's what we have here in our poem here, and I hope that make us understand a little more about trees and appreciate more about trees. Now let's take a look at some of our exercises. You may turn to page 84, working with a poem. So the first question we have here, what are the games or human activities which use trees? Games. Remember, we can also mention here hide and seek and other human activities, or in which trees also participate. We need to consider the word participate here. In other words, what is the role of the trees, all right, in our human activities? So many things that you can write from the poem, and also besides from the poem, you can also write a whole lot of things. For instance, it provides us shelter. In fact, it provides shelter for the birds and animals. It provides us air to breathe. You can also say it provides us fresh air to breathe. You can also go on and say that it provides us timber and also provides us cool shade and so on. So all these things you can point it out. Now question number 2.1, trees are to make no shade in winter. What does this mean? Contrast, which means compare. So you may want to write down that word, compare, this line with the line immediately before it. So if you flip back the page, I've mentioned earlier, trees are to make cool shade in summer, trees are to make no shade in winter. There is that difference. So here, in summer, trees provide cool shade. In winter, it does not provide any shade. Why? Because it has already shed its leaves. So you can point it out, compare it in that way. In fact, if you go along further, you would find a whole lot of more answers in that. Now, question number 2.2. Trees are for apples to grow on, or pears. Do you agree that one purpose of a tree is to have fruit on it? I'm sure you would agree. Or do you think this line is humorous? So underline the word humorous. When we say humorous, we mean funny. Do you think the poet Shirley is simply trying to make it sound funny, or do you think it really provides fruits? One of its purpose is to provide fruit. So yes, you would have agreed. So there you can have your answers in that manner. Then question number 3 here. What you can do is, I would suggest that you try to work this exercise with your family members. Now, what you have to do is, you can also try writing a poem on water or air. So see, how would you start? You can start in the same way the poem started the poem here. Trees are for birds. So if you have chosen water, water is for, you can also put it in that way, or water is to, you can also put it in that way. Supposing you have chosen air, air is for, and you think about what does air provides us, what does air provide you? So you can also put it in that way, and the same thing goes with the second line. You can also say air is to, you can also put it in that manner. So you try to write the poem in that manner. Remember, we do not have any stanza, so you can write it the way we have it here in our poem here. No stanzas except lines. So you can think of many points and put it in this manner. All right. So that's what another activity that you can do. Now, in order to sum up real quick, we would give us a short summary, talk about a short summary of this poem here. So this poem Trees is all about, as the topic itself suggests, it is all about trees, but it also helps us understand, those little things that we took it for granted, such as it provides us cool shade. We can also make a swing out of it. All those things we took it for granted, right? So it helps us to understand and appreciate trees more. It does not only give us basic things such as pure air or air to breathe, but so many other things. And the poet also made us think about chopping down of trees and using it for timber. Like I said, you can discuss it with your family members. How can we stop these kind of things, and what can we do to reconsider it or to replace it? I'm sure the word gas stove is in your mind. So you can point it out in that way. You can do an exercise, verbally discuss with your parents or family members in that way, and also try an activity about drawing trees and in different seasons, how do they appear. So that will also help us understand why trees provide shade in summer and no shade in winter. So all those things you can try it out. Then again, you can also discuss with your family members again what happens when there are plenty of dead leaves in and around your compound, or maybe even your garden, whatever the case may be here. And what do they usually say? You may even find out some very funny comments that your family members say. So you can also try that, but I'm sure when you do that, you would be able to appreciate this poem much better. And I would suggest you read it again and enjoy it. And I hope you enjoy doing the activities. It will really help you understand the poem and work out your exercises after giving it a very thorough reading. So on that note, we would be winding up today's class. Thank you all very much for joining me.